Namaskar, dear learners. My name is Chainika Sanapati, and I welcome you all to the week 6 on the module Cooperatives and Rural Development. So, dear learners, after going through this video session, you will be able to discuss and describe how cooperative thinking emerged in Europe and also how it spread worldwide. Again, we'll be able to trace the growth of cooperatives in India across the post-independence and post-1991 phases. Again, you'll be able to identify the landmark laws, the institutions, and the committees, and also we will discuss at the end of the video some of the success stories. So let us begin with the core idea. What is cooperative? So when a group of people realize their individual strength isn't enough to solve a problem, they pool their resources, share their risks, and take decisions as equals. That collective body is a cooperative. Most businesses are driven by profit for owners. A cooperative flips that equation, and the owners are the users. The goal is the service and share economic benefits. Every member in a cooperative gets one vote regardless of how much money they put in. The surplus is shared, based on participation and not power. So why history is important to know about the cooperatives? Because none of this came from any theory. And cooperatives were born when ordinary people found the market and the state were both failing them. Understanding that journey tells us why government support them, why laws try to protect democratic functionings, and why millions in India still depend on these institutions for credit, milk, sugar, fertilizer, housings, and jobs. Now, dear learners, let us discuss the global roots of the cooperative movement. Before cooperatives appeared in the 18th and the 19th century, Europe was going through industrial upheaval. Machines replaced cottage industries, workers, lost bargaining strengths, wages were uncertain, food prices shot up, there was no social security. Banks didn't trust poor people, merchants controlled prices, so the workers and small producers needed a protective shield. The first organized breakthrough came in the year 1844 in a small English town called Rochdale. A group of 28 weavers opened a simple store where members could buy pure food at fair prices. They wrote down a set of principles: open membership without discrimination, democratic votings, limited interest on capital, surplus sharing, then promotion of education and political neutrality. Those Rochdale principles became the DNA of the modern cooperatives. Within decades, cooperative ideas traveled across the sectors. Denmark used dairy cooperatives to transform its rural economy. Germany developed credit cooperatives so that the farmers could escape moneylenders. The Scandinavian countries use cooperative in fishing, housing, and retail. And the pattern was very clear that collective efforts could correct market imperfections. So when we talk about the Indian context before cooperatives, so let us go back to the late 19th century when the rural distress was widespread. Land revenue was harsh. Farmers depended on moneylenders who charged outrageous interest. Crop failures led to debt. Then debt led to land loss. So the colonial state was extracting resources with no safety net for the villagers. So there was no formal rural credit market. So the commercial banks did not exist for ordinary farmers, and the result was a cycle of poverty and helplessness. So the British administrators recognized one thing, that if agricultural credit didn't improve, revenue collection would suffer and rural rebellion could rise. So they sent committees to Europe and studied cooperatives credit in Germany. And slowly, cooperation entered administrative thinking, not out of compassion, but out of economic necessity. So the birth of the cooperative movement in India represents a significant chapter in the country's socio-economic history. emerging as a response to the severe economic distress faced by rural populations during British colonial rule. The movement origins can be traced to the late 19th and the early 20th centuries, when Indian farmers and artisans were trapped in the cycle of debt, facing exploitation from moneylenders who charge high interest rates, often ranging from 50% to maybe now 200% annually. So, this crushing debt burden was worsened by agricultural failures and the breakdown of traditional community support system under colonial economic policies. So, the cooperative ideas offered a ray of hope by proposing that people could pool their resources together, help each other, access credit at reasonable rates, and collectively improve their economic conditions. And the formal beginning of the cooperative movement in India is marked by the passage of Cooperative Credit Societies Act of 1904. And this landmark legislation was influenced by the recommendations of the Famine Commission of 1901 and the work of Sir Frederick Nicholson, who studied cooperative systems in Europe and submitted a detailed report advocating for similar institutions in India. Nicholson observed that cooperative credit societies functioning successfully in Germany and Italy could be adapted to Indian conditions to address the agrarian crisis. And the 1904 Act provided the legal framework for establishing cooperative credit societies primarily in rural areas where members could obtain loan at fair interest rates without falling prey to exploitative moneylenders. Initially, these societies were simple village level organizations focused solely on agricultural credit. The movement gained momentum in the following decades as the scope of cooperation expanded beyond credit. And the Credit Societies Act of 1912 broadened the cooperative framework to include not just credit societies but also consumer cooperatives, producer cooperatives, marketing cooperatives, and housing cooperatives. This legislative evolution reflected a growing understanding that cooperation could address multiple facets of economic life. During this period, cooperative principle of self-help, mutual aid, democratic management, and equitable distribution of benefits began taking root in Indian society. The All India Cooperative Institution Association was formed, and the provisional government started establishing cooperative departments to promote and supervise these societies. So, despite challenges such as inadequate management, lack of education among members, and limited financial resources, the movement continued to spread across different regions and communities. So, the philosophical foundation of the cooperative movement in India drew from both Western cooperative principles established by pioneers like Robert Owen and Rochdale pioneers, as well as indigenous traditions of community cooperation, such as the ancient system of joint farming, community grain banks, and village commons. This blend of external inspiration and local wisdom made the cooperative model particularly relevant to Indian society. Leaders of the Indian independence movement, including Mahatma Gandhi, recognized cooperative as a tool for rural reconstruction and economic self-reliance. Gandhiji emphasized village self-efficiency and saw cooperatives as vehicles for empowering the poor without creating capitalist exploitation or requiring state control. So, this vision integrated economic cooperation with broader social reform goals, including the upliftment of the marginalized communities and women participation in economic activities. By the time India achieved independence in the year 1947, the cooperative movement had established deep roots across the country with thousands of societies operating at village, district, and state levels. The post independence period witnessed further expansion as the government made cooperatives a cornerstone of planned economic development, particularly in agriculture, dairy, sugar production, and banking. Today, the cooperative movement in India represents one of the largest such movements globally, touching millions of lives and continuing to embody the principle that ordinary people, by working together, can overcome economic challenges and build prosperous, equitable communities. So, dear learners, let us discuss some of the cooperatives after independence, how the framework, the policies were formulated. So, first is the constitutional and policy framework, that is 1947 to 1951. So, the period immediately following India's independence witnessed a fundamental reimagining of the cooperative movement role in national development. The newly sovereign nation's leadership recognized cooperatives not merely as economic institution but as instrument of social transformation that could bridge the gap between individual enterprise and the state control. So here the independent India founding leaders viewed cooperative as a middle path between capitalism and state socialism, aligned with the Gandhian principle of self-reliance and community empowerment. The Constitution of India included cooperation in the directive principles of state policy, signaling government commitment to cooperative development. Again, cooperation was initially placed in the state list of the 7th schedule, giving individual state governments primary responsibility for cooperative legislation and administration. And the constitutional recognition provided the legal foundation for systematic development of cooperative as instrument of economic and social transformation. And there was an integration with the 5-year plans also. With the launch of the planned economic development in 1951, cooperatives began an integral component of India's development strategy. So the government's commitment to cooperative was formalized through their systematic incorporation into successive 5-year plans, which provided both policy direction and financial resources for cooperative expansion. The first 5-year plan accorded a significant role to cooperatives, particularly in agriculture, recognizing their potential to address rural poverty and agricultural backwardness. Cooperatives were seen as vehicles for providing farmers with affordable credit, quality agricultural inputs, technical guidance, and marketing facilities. The 3-tier cooperative credit structure was established, consisting of primary agriculture credit societies at village level, central cooperative banks at the district level, and the state cooperative banks at the apex. And subsequent 5-year plans continue to emphasize cooperative development with varying degrees of focus on different sectors and approaches. Then the cooperative farming experiment was done. Among the various initiatives after independence, the attempt to promote cooperative farming stands out as one of the most ambitious yet ultimately unsuccessful experiments. So this initiative, inspired partly by a socialist agriculture model, sought to recognize Indian agriculture through collective cultivation, but it encountered fundamental resistance from the farming community. And the second and the third 5-year plans promoted cooperative farming as a step towards collective agriculture. Then, in stark contrast to the cooperative farming failure, the dairy cooperative movement emerged as the most spectacular success story of post-independence cooperative development. What began as a small farmer initiative in Gujarat transformed into a nationwide revolution that fundamentally altered India's dairy landscape and established a model of cooperative excellence. The Amul cooperative in Gujarat, established in 1940s but expanded significantly after independence, became a model of successful cooperative enterprise. Operation Flood, launched in 1970 under Dr. Verghese Kurien leadership, replicated the Amul model across India to create a national milk grid. The program organized millions of small farmers, especially women, into village dairy cooperative societies that collected milk and ensured fair prices. So India transformed from a milk deficient nation into the world's largest milk producer through their cooperative model only. So the dairy cooperative structure bypassed the exploitative middleman and empowered the rural producers both economically and socially, demonstrating that cooperatives could achieve scale, efficiency, and member benefits simultaneously. Then, building on the movement of cooperative development in credit and dairy, the post-independence period witnessed a remarkable diversification of the cooperative movement across virtually every sector of the economy. From sugar production to housing, from fisheries to consumer goods, from cooperatives emerged as a versatile organizational forms capable of addressing diverse economic needs. So when we talk about sugar cooperatives, particularly successful in Maharashtra and Karnataka, so these factories ensured remunerative prices for sugarcane farmers while providing employment and social infrastructure in rural areas. Then when we talk about consumer cooperatives, with the organizations like Kendriya Bhandar and the state level cooperative stores aim to provide quality goods at fair prices, protecting consumer from market exploitation. Then when we talk about housing cooperatives, it enables the middle class families in urban areas to access affordable housing through collective land purchase and development. When we talk about fisheries cooperatives, the organized traditional fishing communities along the coastal regions providing better equipment, marketing facilities and protection from merchant exploitation. Then we talk about handloom and handcraft cooperatives, where it supported the traditional artisans and weavers by providing raw materials, credit, and marketing support. When we talk about banking cooperatives, it expanded significantly to provide rural credit and saving facilities, creating a parallel banking structure alongside the commercial banks. So, when we talk about the challenges and weaknesses, so despite the impressive expansion and notable success, the post-independence cooperative movement struggled with serious structural and operational weaknesses that undermined its effectiveness and credibility. Many of these problems stemmed from the contradiction between the cooperative ideal of autonomous member-driven institutions and the reality of extensive government control and political references. So, some of the challenges were the government interferences, then political issues, then elite captures, then financial mismanagement, lack of professional management, that is, low participation in cooperative governance and activities by ordinary members, reduced accountability and democratic functioning. So, recognizing the growing problems within the cooperative sector, the government, constituted several high-level expert committees over the decades to diagnose the ailment and prescribe remedies. So, these committees produce comprehensive analyses and reform recommendations. Through their implementation, remain incomplete and uneven across the country. So, dear learners, let us talk about the impact of economic liberalization, that is 1991 onwards, what happened. So, the economic liberalization initiated in 1991 marked a watershed movement for India's cooperative sector, ushering in an era of market competition and reduced state protection that fundamentally challenged the existing cooperative model. So, the new economic environment forced cooperatives to confront questions about their competitiveness, efficiency, and relevance in the market-driven economy. So, the economic reforms and liberalization in 1991 exposed cooperatives to market competition and reduced their protected status. Private and foreign banks expanded into rural areas, competing with cooperative banks for deposits and lending business. Modern retailer chains and e-commerce platform challenged traditional cooperative retail outlets, then exposing their inefficiencies. Many cooperatives that had survived on government support rather than genuine competitiveness struggled to adapt to the new competitive environment. However, well-managed cooperatives found new opportunities to expand, innovate, and access modern technology and markets without restrictive government policies. So, the liberalization period forced a reckoning with the question of whether cooperatives could succeed as business enterprise while maintaining their social objectives. Then a landmark development in India's cooperative history occurred in the year 2011 with the passage of the 97th Constitutional Amendment, which for the first time provided comprehensive constitutional protection and recognition to cooperative societies. This amendment represents a fundamental shift in the legal status of cooperative and establish clear guidelines for their democratic functioning and autonomy. This landmark amendment added Part 1xp to the Constitution dealing exclusively with the cooperative societies, providing them enhanced constitutional protection and recognition. In the contemporary India, the cooperative sector has evolved into a massive network of institutions touching millions of lives across the country. Recent years have witnessed renewed government attention to the cooperatives with new institutional mechanisms and policy initiatives aimed at revitalizing the movement and enhancing its contribution to national development. India's cooperative sector today encompasses over 850,000 cooperative societies with membership exceeding 290 million people across diverse sectors. And the central government established a separate Ministry of Cooperation to provide focused attention to cooperative development and strengthen inter-cooperative collaborations. So successful cooperatives institutions like AMUL, IFFCO, that is the Indian Farmers Fertilizers Cooperative, and various state level organizations continue to demonstrate their models' viability. So, dear learners, there are current challenges and future directions also. So, as India moves forward with the coming years, the cooperative movement faces a complex set of challenges and opportunities shaped by technological disruptions, generational changes, then environmental concerns, and evolving market dynamics. The sector must now navigate these changes while remaining true to its fundamental principle of democratic participation and equitable benefit distribution. Cooperatives must balance preserving fundamental values of democracy, equity, and mutual aid while adapting to rapid technological and economical changes. Digital technologies are happening nowadays, offer opportunities for improving governance, transparency, and service delivery, but require some investment in infrastructure and capacity building. Now, the younger generations bring new perspective on environmental sustainability, social responsibility, and innovative business models that cooperative must integrate. So, competition from the private sector enterprise, fintech companies, and e-commerce platforms requires cooperatives to enhance efficiency and member value propositions. So, dear learners, let us now discuss some of the landmark success stories of cooperatives in India. First, let us talk about the Amul and the white revolution that we say. So the Amul Dairy Cooperative represents India's most celebrated cooperative success story, transforming not just the dairy sector but demonstrating the power of the cooperative model itself. Founded in the year 1946 in Anand, Gujarat by Tribhuvandas Patel under Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel's guidance to counter exploitative milk trade practices. Farmers were receiving extremely low prices from the Paulson Dairy monopoly and middlemen, created a three-tier structure, that is the village societies, district unions, and the state federation. Dr. Varghese Kurain joined in the year 1949 and revolutionized the operations with the professional management and innovative technology. Developed processes to convert buffalo milk into milk powder, breaking dependence on the cow milk. Then Operation Flood from the year 1970 to 1996 replicated the Amul model itself nationally and making India the world's largest milk producer, empowered over 3.6 million farmers, particularly women, providing them steady income and economic independence. So the Amul pattern became synonymous with the cooperative success, farmers' ownership, and professional management and direct market access. Now, let us talk about the Indian Farmers Fertilizers Cooperative that we call IFFCO, emerged as Asia's largest fertilizer cooperative, providing that cooperative could operate efficiently even in capital intensive manufacturing sectors, established in the year 1967 by cooperative societies to ensure farmers access quality fertilizers at affordable prices, built large manufacturing plants, and became the self-reliant in fertilizer production. It operates on the principle from farmers for farmers, with ownership resting with cooperative societies representing millions of farmers. Then the Maharashtra Sugar Cooperative. The sugar cooperative movement in Maharashtra showcased how farmer-owned processing industries could transform rural economy. So emerged in the year 1950 with the establishment like Sri Chhatrapati Rajaram Sahakari Sakhar Karkhana in Kolhapur in the year 1955. Farmers collectively owned sugar factories and ensuring they get benefit from both the cultivation and the processing. So provided remunerative prices for sugarcane and significantly higher than what the private mills offered, and it generated substantial rural employment in factory operations and ancillary activities. And it invested also profits in community infrastructure like school, hospitals, roads and irrigation facilities, and created a prosperous rural middle class in sugar belt regions of Maharashtra. And at their peak, cooperative sugar factories accounted to over 50% of Indian sugar production, became the model of rural industrialization and integrated rural development. Then here we have to talk about the Kerala's fisheries cooperatives, where the Kerala's coastal fishing communities traditionally among the most marginalized groups found empowerment through fisheries cooperatives. Matsya Fed, that is the Kerala State Cooperative Federation for Fisheries Development, established in the year 1984, organized traditional fish folk into cooperative societies, providing equipment, ice, storage, and marketing facilities. Then again, we have to talk about the Gujarat Cooperative Milk Marketing Federation. So while Amul is the brand, GCMMF is the apex cooperative body that manages the entire Gujarat dairy cooperative movement. So, established in the year 1973 as a state level apex body for dairy cooperatives in Gujarat. It markets products under the iconic Amul brand name and processes over 20 million liters of milk daily from 3.6 million farmers members. Then is the Krihak Bharati Cooperatives, KRIBHCO, which is established in the year 1980, became another major success in the fertilizers cooperative sector alongside IFFCO. It's a multi-state cooperative society owned by over 6,700 cooperative societies representing millions of farmers, and the manufactures various fertilizers including urea, complex fertilizers and biofertilizers. It focuses on soil health and sustainable agriculture through specialized products. Again, we have to talk about Shri Mahila Griha Udyog Lijjat Papad. We normally call it Lijjat Papad. It represents a unique women's cooperative success story, empowering thousands of women through a simple yet powerful business model. Founded in the year 1959 by 7 Gujarati women in Mumbai with a seed capital of just rupees 80, started by making papads, crispy snacks as a home-based enterprise, grew into large cooperative with over 43,000 women member across India. So members work from home, maintaining work-life balance while earning income. Producers not just papads, but it also produces spices, detergents, bakery items also. Then the cooperative bank success stories are there. Some of them are Saraswat Cooperative Bank, so one of the India's largest urban cooperative bank, established in the year 1918 with presence across multiple states and modern banking services. Then Karnataka State Cooperative Apex Bank, which is successfully adapted to the technology and competition, maintaining financial health. And these banks provided banking services to areas undeserved by the commercial banks. It maintained close relationships with the local communities and understood grassroots needs. It offered personalized services and quick decision making compared to large commercial banks. Then there's housing cooperative examples also. So the housing cooperatives in major Indian cities enable middle class families to achieve the dream of home ownership through collective actions. Cooperative housing societies became the predominant form of urban housing in cities like Mumbai, Pune, Bangalore, and other cities. And the members collectively purchased land at a reasonable rate, reducing the individual cost. build apartments complex with shared amenities like parks, community halls, and recreational facilities, and democratic management of common areas and maintenance by the elected committees. It provided also the affordable housing alternatives when individual purchase was financially difficult. So it created a strong community bond and neighborhood networks. So why cooperative still matters? Because of the financial inclusion and credit access. In a country where millions still lack access to formal banking services, cooperatives remain critical institutions for financial inclusion, especially in rural and undeserved area. Cooperative banks and credit societies provide banking services in remote areas where commercial banks find operations unviable. They offer credit to the small farmers, artisans, micro entrepreneurs, often considered unbankable by the mainstream financial institutions. Again, why it is important? Because agricultural support and give rural development also it happened. So agriculture remains the backbone of India's rural economy that we all know, and cooperatives continue to play an indispensable role in supporting small and marginal farmers for who constitute the majority of the farming community. Again, cooperatives provide a powerful mechanism for economic and social empowerment of group traditionally excluded from the mainstream economic opportunities, particularly women, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other disadvantaged sections. Again, for democratic economic participation, in an era of growing economic inequality and cooperative concentration, cooperatives offer a model of economic organization based on democratic principles where ownership and the control rest with users rather than investors. Again, for local economic development, so cooperatives anchor economic activity in local communities, ensuring that wealth generated stays within their region and contributes to comprehensive local development. Again, for protection from the market exploitation, so the small producers and the consumer remain vulnerable to exploitation by powerful market intermediaries and monopolistic business, and cooperatives provide a collective strength to negotiate better terms. Again, for sustainable and ethical business practices, as concerns are about environmental sustainability and ethical business practice grow, cooperatives offer business models inherently oriented towards long-term sustainability and community welfare rather than short-term profit maximization. Again, for food security and nutrition, India's food security architecture relies significantly on cooperative institutions for production, procurement, distribution, and processing of essential food communities. Again, for digital financial inclusion, as India embraces digital transformation, cooperatives are playing important role in bridging the digital divide and enabling financial technology adopting at the grassroots levels. Again, for employment generation, in a country facing significant employment challenges, cooperative provides direct and indirect employment opportunities, particularly important for youth, women, and rural population. Again, it is important for social cohesion and community building. Beyond economic benefits, cooperatives strengthen social fabric by building trust, cooperation, and mutual support within communities, particularly valuable in increasingly fragmented modern society. Again, it is important because to counter to economic inequality. As a wealth concentration increases globally and in India, cooperatives offer a structural alternative that distributes economic benefits more equitably among participants rather than concentrating them at the top. So, as India pursues inclusive growth and sustainable development, cooperatives remain vital institutions capable of ensuring that economic progress benefits all sections of the society, particularly those at the bottom of the pyramid. Their emphasis on collective welfare over individual profit maximization, democratic governance over hierarchical control, and long term sustainability over short term gains make them specially relevant for addressing contemporary challenges of inequality, exclusion, and unsustainable development. The cooperative model proves that another way of organizing economic activity is possible, one that serves people rather than capital, empower communities rather than concentrating power, and builds shared prosperity rather than winner take all outcomes. So, the cooperative movement didn't evolve through policy slogans, it was built through the struggle of the ordinary people who refused to accept the exploitation as normal. Their answer was simple: that stand together, share power, and distribute gains fairly. So, from ritual to Amul, from German village banks to Indian dairy unions, the message is that the cooperation is not a charity but it is a strategy. So, dear learners, with this we have come to the end of this video session. See you in the next video. Until then, keep learning.